Hi guys, welcome to session 6. This is part 1 of stress management. In this session, we're going to be talking about what stress is and what it does to our bodies. Next week, we'll be talking about stress management. Please don't forget to press like and subscribe. What is stress? I don't think there's anyone out there who can say that they have not experienced stress or that they're not experiencing stress at some point in their lives, especially now. So I would like to define what stress is, definition-wise. It's significant to note that stress is all-encompassing, can occur at any point in our lives. Even happy stress, even stress of excitement is still called stress. So stress can be defined as a reaction to a specific situation and or situations. So what we want to focus on is that it's not the actual situation itself that's causing the stress. Rather, it's our emotional reaction to that situation that is stressful. So let's say you lose your job. While that is the situation, how your body reacts to it, how you react to it psychologically is what is defined as stressful or a stressful situation. So often we're focusing on the situation in the moment, rather the stressful reactions or the emotional reactions happen thereafter. Now, people with chronic pain, of course, are not void from stress. They are subjected to even more stress. They are not able to handle sometimes really difficult situations that may seem, to you and I, that it could be every day and it's easy to handle. For people who have chronic pain, they're already stressed out enough on a day-to-day basis. They're already feeling stressed from the moment they wake up to the time they go to bed. And that stress is compounded by further additional stress. So their stress is there every day. It's fixed. It's relentless. We talked about how insidious it is as it happens on a regular basis. However, other forms of stress that happen compound the stress they normally feel with their pain and further exacerbate their pain. So for example, to you and I who don't have chronic pain, or someone else who has not been subjected to chronic pain, it may be difficult to understand why they're not able to deal with everyday stresses. Why is it harder for them? Well, when you are stressed out, you have more pain when you are a person who is dealing with chronic pain. So for example, everyday stresses, in order of importance, I would say the first one, obviously, health stresses. So any additional health-related issues that are in addition to the chronic pain. So for example, whether it's heart disease or diabetes or even more life-threatening issues like cancer, anything like that can further compound everyday stresses. I think the second most important form of stress that causes possibly the most amount of psychological distress and worrying is financial stress. Financial stress, whether it's day-to-day stresses of paying your bills, or more important stresses just being able to save or pay for big purchases, or basically, paying your mortgage or paying your rent, etc. That's also a huge stress that can compound other already in place stresses. Now, stress is associated with parenting, with kids, with household responsibilities, with in-laws, with work. There are so many different kinds of stresses that people have in their lives. And depending on where you are in your life, you experience stress differently, depending on the circumstances of your life. Now, if you are experiencing chronic pain, again, I'm going to use the word compound. You already have stress just by virtue of your chronic pain. Now, imagine, in addition to that, you have financial stress, you have relationship stress, you have emotional stress, you have child stress with your kids being at home during this pandemic and not being able to have 5 minutes to yourself. Those are all stresses that further exacerbate whatever else is going on with your body physiologically. So as stress levels increase, as stress levels heighten, people who have chronic pain tend to see their pain levels also increase. Their reaction to the pain increases. So I talked about earlier that it is our reaction, our emotional reaction to the situation rather than the actual situation itself. With it synonymous with when I said before that it is our perception versus the actual pain. Okay, so their perception of what is going on will far outweigh what the actual pain is. And in this situation, it is their emotional reaction to the situation that's far greater than the actual situation. So they're in pain, they are now experiencing additional stress and additional pain. So where the vicious cycle comes into play is that as they experience more pain, they're more stressed out because they were already previously stressed out about something else. So that primary source of stress affects a secondary source of stress and vice versa. So the cycle keeps going on and on and on without any room for reprieve. So people who experience chronic pain may, when I said why is it other people can't really understand or find it difficult to empathize, everyone has a threshold for handling stress. Some people who are more resilient, who cope more effectively, have a higher threshold for handling stress. It takes a lot for them to really freak out or be stressed out, so to speak. But people who have chronic pain, they have a lower threshold for stress. Again, not every single person, I don't want to generalize. However, generally speaking, because of the chronic pain diagnosis, which is already stressful enough in of itself, any additional source of stress, they're already not on an equal footing with everyone else. So while it is extremely fundamental and important for everyone to be able to stress less and handle stress more effectively, it is that much more important with people who have chronic pain to be able to manage the stress on an everyday basis before it becomes larger than life. So when they first notice or they have a feeling that they're starting to get stressed out, it's important to identify those triggers to stress in order to be able to deal with them. So first, being cognizant of what the triggers are. For example, in terms of physiological symptoms related to stress, you might start feeling heart palpitations in your chest, or nervousness, or anxiety, or sweating, or shaking, or nausea, or fatigue, or hyperness. These are all symptoms of stress that you, over time, become cognizant of. Now, when we experience high levels of stress, the stress hormone that's responsible is called cortisol. So when cortisol is at a high level, obviously we experience more stress. And in order to have stress relief, we have to lower our cortisol levels in order to come back to a state of equilibrium. So why is it important for them to be able to handle stress in a timely manner instead of later? When you wait later to handle stress, the stress gets worse, obviously. When you haven't dealt with things as they go, they don't get better. It doesn't just get better by itself. Something has to be done in order for it to be alleviated to some extent. Now, obviously, some forms of stress are not in our control. We kind of have to deal with it as we go. But there are other forms of stress that can be held to a less higher standard and can be dealt with more effectively in a less intrusive way. So, for example, I'm just going to talk about a scenario in terms of what perhaps someone who has chronic pain might encounter on an everyday basis. So this is just a fictitious scenario. Maybe some people can actually relate to it. Let's say we have someone who has chronic knee pain for 10 years. And all of their activities and how they, figure out their day or the events that they have in the week are manifested upon how their pain is, what their feelings are like, how they're doing. Everything is dependent on how they feel in the moment. So for them to plan things in the future or even the next day may be difficult. So this person has chronic knee pain. They're feeling a little bit stressed out because they're experiencing a little bit more pain than usual. So they're doing their regular exercise routine and they notice that the next day they're having a little bit more pain. Now, simultaneously, they have committed themselves to an event in which they're going to be cooking for, a few people that are coming over for a dinner, which is supposed to be fun. However, you can see how something fun or something entertaining can actually become highly stressful for someone in this situation. So this person is feeling stressed because they have gone for their walk or their run, and now they're experiencing a little bit more pain than usual. Sometimes this can be brought upon subconsciously without you even being aware. Sometimes when you have an event, you have something going on, your body is already at the point of getting stressed out. but you're not fully aware of it in the moment. So, they say, okay, I'm a little bit stressed, I'm having pain, why is it happening now? But automatically, their stress level is heightened because now they have to cook for this party that they're having. So, one of the thoughts that they may have is, okay, I'm already in pain, I already can't handle it, and now I have to cook for all these people. So again, their stress level heightens. So primary source of stress was the increased pain after exercise. Secondary source of stress is now the idea of having to cook for people while being in pain, the possibility of not being able to do it, the possibility of failing in doing so, or things not turning out well. So now this second stress is actually becomes more all-consuming rather than the first source of stress. So the more stressed out they become over the event, the more pain they experience. Again, the cycle of pain repeats itself. Because there's no time for downtime, because there's no time for relaxing the body or taking the cortisol level of hormone down, their stress levels are increasing. So now if they cancel the party, they're even more stressed out because now they committed to something that they can't bring to fruition. So you can see how one little situation can become something entirely different just because of a primary pre-existing issue. Now in this case, it depends on the person, obviously. One person might take a couple of pills and kind of just suffer through it and see how it goes. One person might cancel it. What I would recommend, again, I don't want to speak for anyone, however, perhaps getting some help, perhaps delegating some responsibilities so as to not completely cancel the event. And the reason why I say that is because if you're to cancel that event, afterwards, feeling psychologically worse about having to cancel might actually bring the level of anxiety and depression higher rather than lower. Because what if you go through the event, you've now delegated, you've gotten some help, and it's successful. So it's something that you wanted to do, that you prove yourself to be competent of and capable of. So it depends what kind of supports you have currently in your life to allow for that, to permit that. Obviously, not everyone has a source of support, but if you do, you should use it. You should use every opportunity you can to delegate, if possible, so that you have a team that can help you. Because if you don't do what you want to do, I'm assuming in this example, this is something that this person wanted to do. If you don't do it, later you might regret it, and that regret can further exacerbate how you feel and how you deal with further life events in the future. I hope that this was helpful. This was part 1 of part 2. Next week, we're going to be talking about how to actually manage stress. Please don't forget to press like and subscribe. See you next week.